What's a good word, everyone? It's your boy DKB here. I just want to say thanks for all the support. The channel's been steadily growing, and the number you see below, you can drop a text, shoot a voicemail, any ideas, topics, collabs, etc. you guys want to see. I'll include them in future videos and live streams, and I'll catch you again. Be easy. What's a good word, Jets fans? It's your boy DKB here, and we have our most up-to-date list possible so far. It's about 11 p.m. PST my time, but we'll see what happens by the morning, right? I fully expect this list to be extended, but we have our general manager candidates that we expect to be interviewing within the next couple of days here virtually, and I'm curious which way we'll get pulled, because you have guys that have deep roots in scouting, you have guys that are cap gurus, and then you have your people that are just overall experienced in handling a full operation, right? And so by that I mean previous general manager experience, if not strong duties that would resemble a general manager for some of these guys that are assistant GMs. So with that said, we'll see which way we go here as mentioned, but I will go through the names here and then dive into the specifics for those that haven't been covered during my GM breakdowns, and you guys should be able to catch it somewhere up there. But with that said, we are going to take a look at Eagles assistant general manager Eric Halaby, Buccaneers assistant general manager Mike Greenberg, Vikings senior vice president of player personnel and Ryan Grigson, Chiefs assistant general manager Mike Borgonzi, Rams senior personnel executive Ray Farmer, and Bengals senior personnel executive Trey Brown. So we're going to kick things off here with Mike Greenberg from the Bucs. He's been with them for about the last 15 or so years, spent the last 2 or 3 of those as an assistant general manager for them, and this is your cap guru. If it involves money in any way, this guy has his blueprints on it, and he's directly responsible for having a ton of excellent free agent classes for the Buccaneers, right? And in general, when you're looking at the analyst and kind of playing the ranking game, you will put the Buccaneers, just based on value, near the top of the list more often than not. So you love the ability for him to be able to put some things together, and for a guy that isn't strong in scouting whatsoever, right? I think he may have 1 to 2 years of experience to his name, if that. There's a different level of scouting, right? And understanding pro from college, but you as a cap guy can't just look at a player and say, here's the number. You need to understand the value, both intrinsically and what's being put out there on the field, and determine, do we have leeway here? Do we have a hard line in the sand? And it's a dangerous game, right? In a lot of ways, I think a guy that can put together free agent classes, whether retaining their own people, and he's done that, an excellent job with that, right? Bringing over Tom Brady, re-signing Mike Evans, keeping Chris Godwin, defensive side, Levante David, bringing over guys like Bryce Hall, recouping Jordan Whitehead for themselves, right? Littered throughout that entire roster on both sides of the ball, has his name all over it. So aside from that, again, bringing in the free agent classes, a huge plus for him. Again, handles all matters of fiscal responsibilities, right? So some of the primary things is like overseeing salary cap, making sure they are CBA compliant, financial and strategic planning when it comes to the draft, and allocating resources to getting guys out there to events like the Combine and the Senior Bowl and all that kind of stuff. That is all him. And with that said, he seems to run a pretty tight ship there. So does have some pretty solid accolades to his name, right? He was the Tampa Bay Business Journal's 40 under 40 honoree. He was also on the Athletics NFL 40 under 40 as a rising star that could shape the direction of the NFL. So I could see him more probably leaning in the direction of like working with the NFL at large, other than necessarily moving up to a GM spot. I just think it's harder for these cap specific guys, but if he's been able to work his way through the scouting community and make sure he has those connections intact, he should be just fine, right? But I'll leave it there. Not too many more positive or negative things I can necessarily say about him. But moving on to probably one of the more intriguing names here, right? Vikings, Ryan Grigson. So over 25 years of experience. He went to the Vikings, I believe, around 2020, 2021. And he moved up the ranks pretty quickly for them, getting promotions effectively every year that he's been there. He does have former GM experience, right? If you're familiar with the name, it's because he was the general manager of the Colts. And this is where questions rise for me, right? This is where, I feel like you either love the guy or you hate the guy. One of the good things about his tenure with the Colts was he had a extremely quick turnaround, right? Obviously, it was on the hands of drafting Andrew Luck, but he went from taking I think it was a 2-14 Colts team to 11-5 in his first year, making the playoffs, earning Executive of the Year accolades. But in that same breath, we go back to Andrew Luck, and you look at that career that got tarnished and just destroyed extremely quick. And Andrew Luck has touched on this and spoken to this to various degrees over the course of the years. One, he got beat up strongly enough to decide he never wanted to return to the NFL. Two, that also means Ryan Grigson never appropriately put a line in front of him to help him not take so many hits, right? Andrew Luck is really one of the true tragic stories in the NFL of a uber talent and a guy that was in that upper echelon of quarterback play for himself, and us being cheated out of seeing him play in the league for 10, 15, 20 plus years. So huge question marks that would need to be addressed by Woody Johnson and company surrounding what happened with the deteriorating line. Why couldn't they get things in play? Because for us specifically, we know how much of an impediment that is, right? We thought Joe Douglas coming in, having the offensive line background and history, working with Robert Saleh, immediately calling out trench play on both sides of the ball as being a primary focus. Again, I've spoken about this. I don't think it was for a lack of trying, but he could never quite get it done. And so we don't want to hear those same kind of excuses, right? Especially considering, in my opinion, we have about 3 to 4 pieces of the offensive line locked down. Maybe right tackle being the biggest question mark, but otherwise left tackle, left guard, center, and right guard I feel comfortable with, assuming AVT is able to return to us. But that would really be the biggest thing. I know a lot of Colts fans that are still extremely sour about Ryan Grigson, so haven't been able to really tap in with them. But when I've checked out some videos, looked at some blogs and stuff, a lot of it is still centered around Andrew Luck. So still extremely sore spot there, but a huge period in time that needs to be discussed and looked into further for the New York Jets if this is the direction that we want to go. Next, we have Rams senior personnel executive Ray Farmer, former Browns general manager. He acted in an interim state, I believe, for a year before officially being hired, and then acting as the general manager for them for 2 years. And there's not a ton of good that's happened with the Browns in the last decade or so, right? The best thing for Ray Farmer is that he could say he had his hands over the Joel Bitonio drafting. But outside of that, there wasn't much great things to speak about during his Browns tenure. Working under Les Snead in the Rams, though, really is helping reboost this stock, right? There's a reason why we're looking for him. And there's an intriguing piece to him from a scouting perspective where he's part of the Rams 6-person, they call OTT, over the top scouting team. And according to what I saw, they build profiles and evaluations of players over multiple years that they expect to be flying under the radar. And they do this by going through games, practices, pro days, etc. So this isn't an uncommon practice, right? But this is more of a focus group specifically dedicated to this. So from what I dug up, they're able to look at an additional anywhere from like 75 to 300 players on top of maybe the 5 to 7, let's say 3 to 500 or so that people look at to prepare their final draft boards and stuff. And obviously you're kind of scouring through thousands, maybe thousands is strong, but hundreds going close to the 1,000 mark. So I do love that perspective of things, and the Rams have been one of the better teams in being able to put together solid drafts, especially considering what their strategy was and kind of mortgaging a lot of the future to various degrees to go out and get guys in the first round. And then we have our final guy here in the Bengals, Trey Brown. So interestingly enough, the Bengals have a weird kind of front office where nobody really has the normal titles of like GM, assistant GM, etc. So he is in fact just a senior personnel executive, but he acts as an assistant general manager in that program. And so he's had some interest over the last couple of years. He's a name that's kind of been, I want to say, low-key hyped up, but those two don't necessarily mix. It's more of a contradiction than anything. But there's two pieces to him, right? There's not a ton to really dig up outside of the obvious. You love the talent that the Bengals have been able to go out and acquire over the last couple of years. He's been a huge piece of that, and he's one of the top executives for the Bengals front office, right? Obviously, if you can make that connection with him being an assistant GM in likeness, I guess. But outside of that, he recently declined a Patriots interview earlier this year. There hasn't been a ton of information as to kind of why or what happened there, but a lot of people were expecting the Patriots to hire Elliott Wolf, and so maybe that deterred people like Trey Brown here from even going out and getting it. Maybe it was wasted time. Maybe there was another reason for it, but it was interesting enough just because as he grew up through the scouting community, he actually worked for the Patriots for a couple of years there. So outside of the decline, he was listed as one of the future GM candidates. I don't know how many names ended up on this list, but it was from The Athletic. He got 2 or 3 votes. There was only a couple other names realistically above him. So he's a guy that people really want to get to know further and what exactly it is that makes him kind of a spark as a future talent here, right? So we'll see what happens with this particular group. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are, kind of where you're potentially leaning. Obviously, we still haven't heard names like Ray Agnew, for example, that are out there. So, again, expect this list to grow. We'll see what happens, but let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you again. Peace.